Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Dave. We have the second show tonight. I have a very special guest. I'm pleased to have with us today the devil. He has agreed to come. Of course, he doesn't take any corporeal form, so he has to use my body to do so. But in it, we'll be able to have a discussion and have the insight from the devil about, well, all things divine, religion, spirit. He has a unique insight and has been the only being that actually knew God personally, even though that didn't go so well for him. He's here to explain his situation and what he thinks of humanity and what humanity can do to bring about real change, real peace, real love. Not that he cares, because as he says, he has the best job in the world. So, how do I refer you? Just the devil? Yeah, you could just call me devil. Devil's fine. Okay. Devil, would you sort of explain your philosophy about life, about God, about how you came to be here, and what you think of humanity so far? Sure, my pleasure, Pastor Dave. This is going to be a treat for me. I rarely get an opportunity to sort of say my side of the story. Well, let me assure you that as the being who was created for the purpose of giving human beings the choice, the free will to choose good and evil, my job is going along just great. Evil persists in the world with little effort from me, by the way. I just have to kick back and let human beings be human beings. Because I'll tell you, I don't think I could have thought about all the evil ways that human beings do, or what they do to each other, and how easily it is for them to slip into that state of mind. I'm not here to get them to see God. That's God's job. And it's really just an experiment for him. He just, he made a creation, he split things in two so that people would have choice, but they are given such a base nature that at least I have seen no evidence of them able to rise above that base nature and actually see the things that their spiritual leaders saw. So throughout the millennia, it hasn't really made much difference. In fact, things seem to be getting worse, not better. But that's good news for me. So, like I said, I get to live forever. I'm an immortal being here to just exist on Earth, or as long as humanity chooses to live in evil. And until human beings can choose goodness, my life is quite secure, so I have no problem with that. Well, the devil, this is really kind of a wretched way of thinking. I mean, people don't want to know that. They want to know that they're good. They want to know they can be with God. Most people who are faithful believe that they can have this relationship with God. Well, Pastor Dave, I appreciate that might be what people want, but it's only in, a sort of a state of fantasy. What people really want is what they really do. They react to the world around them. They do not have the discipline or the higher consciousness or whatever quality it is to maintain a divine life. I mean, there's few. Jesus was one of the exceptional ones. He really had high hopes for human beings. He really believed that they could rise above, that he could get them to that state of the divine, just doing some 4 easy steps. And personally, I think he was right. I mean, I thought he was kind of naive. He's kind of stubborn. That he just insisted that human beings, but I tried to tell him the way it was. I mean, the way it is, and he wouldn't hear that. So he's kind of a dick, So, which is fine. I mean, that was his choice. He's a powerful creature, a powerful spiritual leader. He would have been one of the best, but people didn't really understand what he was talking about, and more likely, they couldn't relate to what he's talking about. Then what was Jesus talking about? What is it that he was saying that you just knew couldn't happen? Good question. Christians and others who see Christ as a spiritual leader probably think that his life, in fact, many people think he is actually, like he was in heaven when I was in heaven with God. He wasn't, but even if he was, to say that he has come to earth as a divine being, which means he really had all the divine qualities that he needed. So it was as if God had come as a human being, and that may have been God's effort. I don't think so, but we'll say it is. We'll say it doesn't matter. If it was in fact true that God had come to earth to take human form so that he could understand and share his ideas, well, it was a miserable failure. That was just not worth anything. And besides, I think it takes away from the truly amazing thing that Jesus did. And that was, I think it's better for human beings to see that he is a human being. And yet he was able to rise out of his base nature and achieve a level of awareness and maintain and connect to the divineness of God's creation. So I don't understand Christians why they think it's important that God just came down here and then there was no sacrifice at all. There was no ability for Jesus in that case. It's just God who knows everything and is all powerful, and he tried to present this argument for being good, being a person who can achieve happiness and heaven, to enter the heavenly kingdom. It's like, okay, but it was such a weak argument, especially, if Christ was in fact God, it's so pathetic an effort by God. So, I hung out with Jesus for 40 days. He wasn't God, but he's a very impressive character because he was one of the unique type of people that I got to meet. And I met all the greats, Buddha, even Muhammad, Krishna, Confucius. These are people that, I never discouraged their effort to try to lift humanity up because I just knew that humanity couldn't get it together. Jesus probably had the simplest formula. I'll give him that. It was a beautiful little simple thing. Devil, would you mind sharing what that formula is? Sure. I thought it was pretty self-evident. There was even books written about it, but clearly it doesn't seem to sink in. People are focused too much on the end of days, hoping Jesus will return. Well, Jesus really had a formula to create heaven on earth. He really did. He tried to encourage that, but he could see that people were so fearful that the only thing that they could probably listened to was the idea that this miserable life that they're leading, if they live in a specific way, they can achieve the kingdom of heaven. But the truth is, the kingdom of heaven could be on earth. And that's what God hoped, and that's what Jesus thought could happen. And I'm just watching and saying, well, bring it on, because I know human beings better than God, better than Jesus, and I just know they can't do it. But you haven't yet, but Devil, you see, you haven't answered the question. I'm trying to figure out what is the simple quality that, or the formula that Jesus wanted to share with humans so they could have heaven on earth. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just kind of go on about it. Yeah, I'm not reluctant to say it is certainly something that I think is beautiful in its simplicity, and quite frankly, it could be achievable, but people have to do some things. The first step would be to stop judging themselves and other beings for being the base human beings that they are. So if human beings can stop feeling bad about being the beings they are, boy, that's pretty awkward. I apologize for that. That's okay. I think I understand what you're saying, Devil. So let me try to sum it up. So because human beings have this base reactionary quality, they should just sort of accept that idea or that quality. Is that right? You're saying? Yeah. That's what. This is what Jesus said, by the way. It's not what I said. But we had great conversations. It was, but the upshot of it was that for seeing yourself as the real creature you are, not this beautiful divine quality, but this almost animal-like quality that you have, that's just something that you need to accept. It is far better for you to embrace your humanity, your animal-like qualities, and just not judge yourself on it. Don't let go of the idea that you're somehow this perfect divine. You know, through the evolutionary reality of how human beings came into it, they've had to do quite a lot. And their base nature is what allowed them to survive. And their intellect, those things, their wits about them, to be able to survive in a very difficult environment through the millennia. So, you know, you should actually, as human beings, be proud of that. And come to some kind of awareness that, okay, accept that's what we are, but that, I know people aren't going to accept that. I mean, just the fact that people can't even get rid of the notion that that the universe and Earth is a mere 6,500 years old, is what keeps them from, they can't even get through this first step because they're so fixated on what the story of creation produced and not the reality of what happened. So they will never accept it. So based just on that, they're never going to accept themselves as this beastly quality that they had that helped them survive as a species through the eons of time. They can't. That's just too insulting to me, which is the ironic part, because Jesus saw that if you just accept your base nature, your beastly nature, you're going to get places, and just recognize, hey, the people that you live around, they're also the same kind of beastly quality. So you have to stop judging yourself for not being able to rise above your nature. So Jesus was really into this whole idea of accepting. Because if you can't accept that, you can't move forward. So that's where the whole concept of forgiveness. Because you can forgive yourself. Yes, don't judge yourself. Don't forget about the quality of what you are. You're a creation of God, no doubt about it. That's not really a problem. So you need to accept the creation that you are. And that you didn't do anything wrong. Nothing was done wrong. But wait, Devin, what do you mean nothing was done wrong? I mean, Eve was in the garden, she ate the fruit, Adam ate the fruit, they disobeyed God's command. Yeah. Alright, I mean, I know that's what people think. It baffles me. Let's just take the story as it is. Completely true. So, what happened, according to the Bible, is that God made Adam, and then from Adam he made Eve. And then he had them live in this Garden of Eden. And they could do anything they wanted. They could eat from any tree, they could interact with any of the animals, they could do anything. But except for those one tree, in the center of the garden was this tree of knowledge. And that's where the good and evil, God did not want his two children to know good and evil. He didn't want them to have this understanding about themselves because he knew they would become ashamed, and he knew that they would not be able to rise above that thinking. And this is exactly where Jesus was talking about. I mean, he's just using the logic of the Bible. He's saying that what happened in the Garden of Eden, the fact that God did not want Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge, because if they did, they would know the ugly, beastly creatures that they are, and they would feel shame. And once they feel shame, they would be unable to rise above their nature. And Jesus is trying to say, yes, you can. You have to rise above it. You have to accept that that's what happened. That, Eve just acted out of, And let's put some perspective here. If the Bible is to be taken literally true, on day 6 of the whole process of creation, Adam and Eve were created. And within a day, the serpent, who, by the way, was not me. I was nowhere near the Garden of Eden. This was just some beast. But of course, people who take the Bible literally say, yes, it must be Satan, which is me, because there's no way a serpent can talk, stands to reason, which is such a joke. The whole story is a complete joke. But in it did reveal this struggle that God wanted human beings to figure out. He set it up. Eve was totally framed. No way could Adam and Eve avoid this situation. Because the truth is, God wanted them to know the truth about good and evil. Totally played them. Totally conned them into thinking that somehow they would choose not to know good and evil, when in fact God wants to know. That's why he created me. God created me to be the representation of evil. And he needed that contrast so that he could see if his little creations would choose him. So, there is the beginning of the end. God totally conned Adam and Eve into thinking they could live immortal. They could have been immortal beings like me. They just had to avoid learning about good and evil. Because once they learned that was going to cause all sorts of problems. And it did. But that's exactly what God wanted. So it's a lie to think that God did not want Adam and Eve to know good and evil. He did. He set this tree in the middle of the garden, this beautiful garden, and this was probably the most beautiful tree. And all the serpent had to do was say, "Oh, come on, you're eating a piece of fruit." And Eve looked at it and said, "It's beautiful. This is so beautiful. You're not going to die." The whole concept of death didn't even make sense to you. First of all, she was like 1 day old. 1 day. I mean, even if you take this literally, you got to think that God was a completely abusive father to set up his children like this. There's plenty of evidence. I'll get to that later. But we're just getting to the point that it is complete fantasy to say that God did not want Adam and Eve to know the difference between good and evil. Because he wanted them to choose. That's the whole purpose of this creation. That's the whole purpose of this experiment. I get to be the evil guy, just sort of the curator of Earth, and all of my wonderfully, I love human beings better than God does. I mean, we were both used. Adam and Eve were used. I was used. Yeah, I had a little spat with God. Yes, I got thrown out. But I didn't lose my mortality. I get to live forever. But Adam and Eve lost theirs. And he punished them so severely. I mean, God is definitely the worst dad ever. Because how could he do that to him? Little Eve, little innocent 1 day old Eve, goes to this beautiful tree and, yes, was talked into taking this piece of fruit. And then, thus eating it, this fruit gave them knowledge. Such knowledge that they realized they were naked. They realized they were animals. They realized they were these sexual beings, that these were, so less than the divine quality of God. And they were made to feel bad about themselves. And that's why God threw them out. Says, you're going to think about the horrible thing you just did. I mean, horrible. This little crime that supposedly Eve did happens all over the world all the time. You go to eat fruit in a tree that you're not supposed to eat. I'm sure that happens I know that happens millions of times a day. So right then, at the creation, Jesus was saying, forget this, get rid of that idea. Don't worry about the fact that we failed as human beings because we are these beastly qualities and we are nowhere near the quality of the divine that God had hoped for us. Jesus wants us to love God. Well, personally, you do what you want. I mean, that's the whole point of this. But he totally screwed you. I mean, he did. He totally screwed humanity. He set it up so they were going to fail, just so he could see what they could do. And Jesus knew about this little relationship. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is forgive yourself. Well, sort of stop judging yourself for making that mistake. Because, that's supposedly the sin that goes through all of us. Meaning it's not so much that we made that mistake, it's just that we came to that awareness. So stop judging yourself based on the knowledge that you know you're this animal. This little reactionary animal. It's not helping. But it works for me because, hey, I get to be evil and I get to be the guy in charge of all these things. Like I said, I love human beings. I love how they are, and I love the ingenuity that, oh, man, it's very impressive what they've done to try to survive here. But it's always about surviving. And, in so doing, it is, in fact, it's created quite a lot of violence, destruction. And even though people are trying to rise above and they kind of understand a few of the philosophical principles about being better and how human beings, wow, getting awful thirsty in this body here there, Pastor Dave. Yeah, well, that's part of the whole thing, isn't it? We're very much victims of our own needs. So yeah, we're prone to thirst and hunger and desire. So that's been our problem. That's right. So the fact that God altered the nature of humans right from the beginning, and Jesus recognized that, he said that's why you got to forget. Just let go of the idea. Stop judging yourself for being this sort of less than divine being. You're still created by God. You can still do this. He believed it. I admired him for believing it. And I think the world has proven me right and Jesus wrong. They can't get out of their own way. They cannot do it. That guilt, that shame, that Adam and Eve, they say right in the Bible, they say it. Jesus wants you to let go of that. Wants you to accept that's who you are. And that's who everyone else is. That's why we struggle. That's why we fight. That's why we do what we do. We have to, and then that's where the next step. So we have non-judgment and then forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves for the nature that we have become. This is what God wanted us to go through. At least that's what Jesus was saying. I agree. I think that's true. I think God is trying. This is just some kind of experiment. He's really pulled way back. There's no reason to believe that he's going to interfere with anything because he's not. That's not the point. The point of creation is the experimentation. And so Jesus knows the first hurdle is for us to stop judging, the humanity of all people and the humanity within each person, including himself. Jesus would say that's how he got to be the divine being he is, because he was able to figure out, okay, I'll stop judging myself. I'll stop judging others. People are just people. We had no choice. Well, I'm sure he would argue they did have a choice, but he doesn't hold it against them. That's the difference. There's no reason to feel ashamed. So, he wants us to move on. He says, get over that. Get over that original sin. Get over that. Forget it. Just accept that's who we are. It doesn't matter which person. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Adam or any other man or any other woman. If you were in that situation, you would have eaten the fruit. You would have eaten the fruit. God was counting on it. And don't think he wasn't. He was. He totally wanted this to happen. He set us up for failure because of his broader experimentation here. He doesn't care. He's just an experiment. He's just a scientist looking back, well, let's see what happens. And this is what happened. But there is a way out. Jesus loved God. I don't. I think, I appreciate the fact that he wanted to experiment, but I still really resent the hell that he set me up. But, as a result of being set up, I get to live this immortal life with beings that I think are fantastic. So I agree with Jesus. We should let that go. We should really recognize the beauty that human beings have. And the beauty that I have. I'm a creature of God just like human beings. I'm not a physical being like human beings, but nonetheless, I was made. God made me. God made us and he used us. He didn't care about us, as just our own creation. He used us for a greater purpose. So he used me to be the evil choice, and of course he set up Adam and Eve to fail so that we could have this struggle. And that's the plan. What can we do to get human beings out of the struggle? Can they make their way out of this evil maze which God created? So I'm really the symbol of evil, and you can hold that against me if you want. But Jesus figured it out. He totally figured it out. I didn't even know it, but he figured it out. But even then, I didn't know. I still don't. I don't believe, and I think the evidence is clear that human beings are not going to go that way. So it is to my benefit that humans stay blind, stay in a state of fear and shame. It benefits me because that means I get to continue to exist. But part of me is pulling it. We're hoping that Jesus is right. But we'll see. It's kind of sad. Like I said, I really like Jesus. He was definitely the smartest guy I ever know. And he figured out this little puzzle we were in. But, and that was part of it. Jesus was able to forgive God for putting him in this situation and actually love God. So that's how amazing Jesus was. Nobody else realized that struggle. So that little story in the Garden of Eden tells you right away that this was a setup, that we were not going to be given some kind of divine beauty. We had to, as a species, we had to figure it out. We had to struggle to get it. And every day we gotta assess what we're going to do to get out of the struggle. So, God has made this an impossibility. But a few people have figured out some of the things we can do to tap into that divine quality that God, at least for now, is essentially keeping to himself. And he really doesn't care if we achieve it or not. You really believe that, devil? You really believe that God doesn't care? That we were set up, that we were in? I understand your concern, but and actually, we don't really know this. This was just an idea. Jesus understood even better than I did. I know things because I've been around a long time. But yeah, once I felt like, well, hey, I wanted to become God because I thought I was more beautiful than him. I was all this kind of stuff. So I already had my little spat with God. But I didn't really understand that I was totally used until I spent time with Jesus. That was when I really understood, oh my God, I got used. And Jesus understood that. Human beings got used too. For whatever purpose, and we don't quite understand the divine experimentation, but, excuse me. Whatever that experimentation was supposed to prove. I think Jesus was right. The only thing it was to prove was to find our way back to God. And God's not going to help us. He's not going to help us. And I suppose I also can find my way back to God. But I'm not so forgiving as Jesus. And that's what Jesus knows. That, okay, once you accept this is what it is, we got set up, but that God ultimately wants us to succeed. I don't see it that way. But I admire his viewpoint. So that's where the power of forgiveness was supposed to come in. Not only are you forgiving, you're not judging yourself and others for being the less than divine creatures that we are. You're also forgiving yourself, and you're forgiving everyone else for their tendency to maintain their animal reactionary type existence. That's something he says we should forgive each other for that. Because, and not only that, we should forgive God. Not that if we start to become aware about God and how he used us and how he set this whole thing up, we just say, well, maybe we can forgive God because ultimately God does want human beings to succeed. And he even wants me to succeed. He even wants me to find my way out. I'm the devil. So that's what Jesus thought. Forgiveness was an anchor, very important quality that human beings should have. And it's just so hard for people. This is a very difficult thing to do. To first accept yourself as less than divine, and then forgive God and yourself and everyone else for being less than divine, and how God set us up to be less than divine. But if you can do those first two steps, if you can accept we're just the base animal beings that we are, and really don't judge ourselves and others for being that, just sort of let go of that. Just say, okay, all right, I accept it. And then forgive yourself. Keep forgiving yourselves for falling back into your base nature and and your neighbors too, for falling back into their less than divine quality. Then there you go. You're on your way. The thing is, I knew I was a divine being. I was the most divine of beings. I was the epitome of divine. And that was taken away from me. Totally set up. I know how God wants. The man is one bastard, I tell you. He played me. So I don't see how I can forgive like Jesus. And I realize that may keep us all in a place of less than divine quality, but I am part of the experimentation. Wasn't even aware of it until Jesus came in and told me, yeah, this is what's happening. God totally set you up. Alright. So I have that knowledge, I accept that knowledge. But I am having trouble with the forgiveness one. I just can't see the point. Why not create people divine and just have that divine expression be about God? We would just be an extension of that divineness. Why do you have to go through the struggle? What's the point of that? Still don't understand that. And even Jesus didn't get it. He doesn't know why God made us do it. He just knows that God wants us to do it for whatever reason, and we have to find our way to God. I think he's being mean, but whatever. I think you're kind of losing me, Devil. So, all right, I get it. So these are the two steps that we're supposed to not judge ourselves for being this less than perfect being, for not being the divine creatures that God had hoped we would be. Because for some reason He needed us to choose divineness, choose goodness, and yet He made it impossible for us right from the beginning to choose. And His punishments were so harsh that He made us struggle. So that is difficult to see. I don't know. So yeah, see, there you go. So that's exactly where I am. I mean, that's exactly it. It's like, well, why? We got used, we got set up, this is all just some kind of perverted experimentation. And Jesus and the other leaders, they all understood the purpose and the value of, certainly Buddha and Muhammad and Krishna, they all talk about forgiveness. Confucius, very important how he insisted on forgiving. So he knew. So forgiveness was a huge thing. But of course the big one that most don't do. I mean, they wanted peace. They liked the idea of just sort of peace, not killing each other. So there was a practical value in searching for peace. But Jesus inserted this step, says, well, yeah, we all want peace, and certainly not judging ourselves and forgiving ourselves was a step in the right direction. Also, not judging others and forgiving others. Those are the foundational steps we had to take in order to achieve this peace on earth. But this is where Jesus was slightly different. He talked more about love. I mean, not just like a sexual love or love of family. It wasn't like that. This had to be what they call it, the agape love, the larger love, the love of humanity, the love of creation, and including the love of God. So you had to have this vast sense of appreciation and love about creation and God, and how an integral part of all that was critical. And therefore it meant that you had to love, yes, you could love your family, love your neighbor, but you also had to love your enemy, the person that was working against, because it goes back all the way to the non-judging, the forgiving of them for being the people that they are, that they're caught in this struggle and they don't know how to get themselves out, and you have to love them through that. And that by being loved, by being truly present for somebody in a state of love, that's the only way you're going to achieve peace. So Jesus really, he really understood the big four steps here. Accepting and non-judging ourselves for not being divine creatures, forgiving ourselves and God and everyone else for being less than divine, and the little things that we do to harm each other. So the forgiveness is, yes, you forgive somebody who kills your child, but you also forgive all of humanity. You forgive even God. You even forgive me. I'm the devil. You even forgive me because you understand that we are a part of this larger experiment in the hope that we could find our way to it. So that big one, that love step, that's the one that's going to kill. I mean, even if anyone could even get past the first step, which I don't think they can. But yeah, I can see Jesus' logic. It actually makes sense. It does seem like that could happen. It does seem like it. It seems like, yeah, if everyone could just stop judging themselves and each other, and just accept that we are the less than divine creatures, we really can accept that. Then we move on to forgiveness. So any of the individual acts of violence and brutality that we are sure to continue to do, then yeah, maybe we can set ourselves up for having this global agape love, this love of everyone, love of creation, love of God, love of me. You even have to love me, because I'm just part of the experimentation too. Anyway, that is the nature of what Jesus was trying to say, and that's the big step. That's the tough step. Personally, I think the first step is the impossible step, because of that story, and it's perpetuated. It's like, keep saying God set us up, set Adam and Eve up, and the moment they went against God, they felt shame. They had knowledge of being just this animal, this base being, this less than divine quality. So they were aware of their divineness, but then they were aware, no, we're just these sexual creatures that pee and poop and have sex and are filled with all this desire and fear and all this other stuff, and that knowledge had come into them, and we felt shame. Shame. I never felt shame. No, I didn't go through that. I was outside that particular parameter, because I maintain my immortal divine being present. I just couldn't be in heaven. But nonetheless, so I don't know. That's one thing I don't know about, that I can't share the experience with human beings about what it must mean to be this creature, this animal, and to have known the divine and then have that taken away. So it's severely, as bad as my opponents, I just got kicked out of heaven. Human beings came in, and the effort to get back to heaven, unbelievable. The truth is, you can have heaven on earth. At least Jesus thought so. I don't share his optimism. I think every day that goes by, the awareness is that we're not anywhere near it, because we're not even out of step one. We can't even accept ourselves for being the creatures that we are. We all keep thinking we can rise above it, but we don't have a clue. Well, you do have a clue. You were told. Jesus figured it out. At least I think he did. I think he had the right idea. But I don't think it can happen. So anyway, that's the formula. That's pretty impressive. I mean, he figured it out, and it's simple, and that's all his word was about. I love that. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, good. So, devil, then, what can we do? I know those are the general steps, but how do we do what Jesus thought we could do? Like, why is it important that we go through him? That the only way to the kingdom of heaven is through Jesus. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, again, I really do think that since earth is part of the creation, that heaven can be on earth. That if we actually can create heaven on earth, then all heaven will open up to us. Including me, if I so choose. But I don't know if I can. Again, I struggle with those kind of problems too. The forgiveness one, where I'm just this creature that was used. But all right, I'll try to answer the question. Let's see. Since Jesus is one of the few people that actually was able to connect to the divine, And what he's saying is that if you realize or recognize those simple steps, it will help you a great deal to project your desire to be heavenly, to be a divine creature in the image of Christ. Because Christ did. He did do it. He managed to achieve the divine. He had heaven within him. Because he was able to do the 4 steps. Since he was able to not judge himself and anyone else for being less than divine, and forgave himself and God for that, and even me, he forgave me. Isn't that sweet? Wow. Then he learned to love. He understood the value of love, the necessity of love and of creation. Love of everything and everyone in it. Thinking that we are equally as beautiful no matter who we are, including me. That I was part of this experiment and God had this and we are all to see. But you may not be able to see that. You may not have that vision, but just know that Jesus had it. So by sort of directing your thinking, or when you're in that sort of spiritual place, you try to project it onto Jesus. But don't get lazy. I mean, really, use that powerful image that Jesus was talking about to become divine within you. So that love, and then once you really tap into that whole sense of love that Jesus was talking about, this really grand love of creation, love of God, love of the devil, love of everyone, love of even when we are not acting well or less than divine. We can love them. We can forgive them and love them. But it's a hard level of consciousness to achieve. So he's saying, well, if you're having trouble reaching that level of sort of divine sensibility, then go through me. Me being Jesus, not me, the devil. Don't go through me. If you really want to achieve some kind of appreciation for the divine, then that's what you should do. Project it onto Jesus. That should help. Once you achieve that, you'll at least find peace in yourself. Whether there will be peace on earth, well, that's another matter. But if enough people have found that peace, they really know the love God can generate in creation. No matter how the creation happened, no matter the struggles we went through, you can love it all. What they call warts and all. So yeah, you can really love all that. And love in the moment, not just in some grand principle too. That as you're interacting as a human being, that you actually can feel the divine love that Jesus knew, he figured out. So you hold no ill will towards Jesus for finding it. No, I don't. Jesus was an amazing human being. And for those that insist that he is not a human being, that he was in fact just God, well, you're missing the message. And I didn't understand it either until we talked about it. I mean, I still think he's incredibly naive, and that what he's offering here is, it's insane, really. I mean, but the truth is, it could work. I mean, in principle, it seems like it could work. So I admire that. And he forgave me. I am the symbol of evil, and he loved me. So the fact that I can admire him, I can't love him because I don't know how to love. That's just something I can't do. I'm still stuck on forgiveness. Because I can't forgive God for setting me up like this. I mean, I have a good job. I like it. I get to be an immortal being. So I don't have to do the judgment thing. I don't. In fact, if I can say the word love, I mean, I really admire human beings given their situation. They were, as much as I was screwed, they were totally screwed. They were screwed over so bad. So for a human being to rise to the point where they can embrace creation in its entirety, including me, and forgive all that, and love all that, there's no way I cannot admire that. So I admire his ability to do that. So if you don't believe that Jesus had the answer, just know that from my point of view, yeah, he did. Do I think you can achieve it? No, I don't think so. Because you're going to be like me. You're going to get stuck. I personally think you're stuck on that first step, where you can't even stop judging other people and yourself. You can't even get out of your own way. So you can't even get to the point of forgiveness. And if you can't get to forgiveness, you can't get to love. And if you can't get to love, you can't get to peace. So human beings are very far away from what Jesus wanted and what we think God was intending. So it really is kind of up to him to get us to the end. Well, thank you, Devil. I appreciate you coming. We are approaching our 1 hour mark. We're going to have to stop. I do want to thank you. It was nice. It was really insightful. I even come to appreciate your perspective on creation and the divine and your relationship with God, and even your relationship with Jesus, which was very fascinating. And it does seem like you're not so much working against us, but you're not exactly in a position to help us overcome our nature. Well, that is quite true. I can't help but realize that no matter what, even if Jesus is absolutely right, and I actually think he is, I can't get past my own problems. That means I have to forgive God. And now that I have the knowledge that this was a total setup, I just don't know. I can't get past that. And I don't know how. I mean, I can even try to project the idea, but my experience is so different from being human. Because I never experienced shame. So from there, granted, I have no problem with accepting human beings as the less than divine creatures that they are. I get that. I totally love them for that, as much as a devil can love. Yeah, I get that. But to forgive God for totally, setting me up. I mean, I got used, and I can't get past that. If I could, I mean, as much as I can give love to humanity, because I get it, I understand what they're going through. I don't see how it benefits me. And I really can't get it. Maybe I will. And maybe with the help of all of humanity, maybe someday I can break that and embrace all of creation just like Jesus wants us. But we'll see. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming, Devil. I just thought this was so exceptional. listeners, thank you. I'm going to have a good night. Take care.